March 27th carries the echoes of discovery, war cabinets, public health reckonings, and lessons etched into runways and tectonic plates. Tracing them reveals how each decision reshaped the modern world. Let's rewind. This is your This Day in History. On March 27, 1513, Spanish explorer Juan Ponce de León sighted the verdant peninsula he christened La Florida after weeks of riding the Gulf Stream north. His caravels rolled through Atlantic swells as lookout bells rang and flowering shorelines broke the horizon under a pale spring sun. Smoke from Timucua villages curled above the mangroves, reminding the crew that ancient homelands already thrived beyond the breakers. Ponce noted lilies and the Easter season in his log, inspiring the name Florida in honor of Pascua Florida. Officers debated freshwater inlets and anchorages, penciling soundings that might support future landings. Back on deck, the pilot traced the coastline onto vellum charts, extending Spain's imagined reach across the Gulf. On March 27, 1794, the United States Congress authorized 6 heavy frigates, committing the young republic to a permanent navy. House debates weighed fears of executive overreach against reports of Barbary corsairs harassing American merchants. Shipyards from Boston to Philadelphia rang with adzes as quartermasters requisitioned live oak and white pine. Naval architect Joshua Humphreys sketched longer keels and heavier batteries so the frigates could outrun ships of the line, yet outgun rivals. Merchants, enslaved sawyers, and free black caulkers joined the labor force, tying maritime commerce to national defense. When Constitution and her sister ships slid into harbor, the nation signaled that its trade routes would sail under armed protection. On March 27, 1814, General Andrew Jackson and allied Cherokee and Lower Creek warriors assaulted the Red Stick Fort at Horseshoe Bend. The Tallapoosa River looped like a fortress wall around the log breastwork, manned by more than 1,000 Muskogee defenders. Cherokee fighters swam the river with muskets wrapped in skins, opening a second front inside the barricade. Jackson's artillery battered the palisade, while militia and allies forced narrow gaps amid deafening volleys. By dusk, the Red Stick resistance lay shattered, ending the Creek War's decisive battle. The Treaty of Fort Jackson soon ceded 23 million acres, dispossessing even Creek communities that had fought beside Jackson. On March 27, 1854, Britain formally declared war on Russia, aligning with France and the Ottoman Empire in the Crimean Theater. Lord Aberdeen's cabinet bowed to public anger over Sevastopol after diplomacy unraveled in Vienna. Foreign Secretary Lord Clarendon traded urgent cables with Paris, cementing a rejected ultimatum to the Tsar. Steam transports at Portsmouth loaded infantry, cavalry mounts, and artillery for the Mediterranean voyage. Illustrated newspapers fanned patriotic fervor, promising a swift check on Russian expansion. The conflict would catalyze modern war reporting, field hospitals, and reforms championed by Florence Nightingale. On March 27, 1871, Raeburn Place in Edinburgh hosted Scotland versus England, the first official international rugby union clash. 5,000 fans lined earthen banks, peering from umbrellas as 20-a-side teams squared up in dark blue and white. With experimental laws and 2 referees, scrums morphed into sprawling mauls that tested stamina more than choreography. Scotland's forward rushes yielded a try by Angus Buchanan, sealing a 4-1 victory under the scoring conventions of the day. Bagpipers and brass bands turned the touchline into a festival that fused sport with national pride. Administrators soon formed an international board, codifying rules that carried rugby across the empire and beyond. On March 27, 1915, health officials apprehended Mary Mallon, Typhoid Mary, returning her to indefinite isolation on North Brother Island. Physician Sarah Josephine Baker had traced New Manhattan outbreaks to Mallon's covert cooking jobs. Escorted onto an East River ferry, Mallon faced a windswept ride toward the quarantine hospital she likened to exile. Courts upheld the detention, ruling that asymptomatic carriers could be restrained for the public good. Her case ignited debate over civil liberties, sanitation investment, and the ethics of compulsory medical control. On March 27, 1933, Japanese delegate Yosuke Matsuoka led his nation's walkout from the League of Nations after condemnation over Manchuria. He delivered a defiant speech in Geneva before exiting to mixed applause and stunned silence. Tokyo newspapers emblazoned triumphant headlines, while censors muted warnings about isolation. League diplomats huddled in side rooms, conceding the institution lacked means to enforce collective security. Japan's withdrawal emboldened militarists and signaled that the interwar order was collapsing. On March 27, 1964, a magnitude 9.2 megathrust earthquake ripped across Alaska, the strongest quake recorded in North America. Anchorage avenues heaved, storefronts split, and the Turnagain Arm neighborhood slumped toward Cook Inlet. Tsunamis radiated outward, wrecking ports in Valdez and Kodiak and rocking harbors as far south as California. Geologists studying the uplift gathered proof that plate tectonics governed Alaska's restless crust. Rebuilding brought rigorous seismic codes and emergency planning that spread worldwide. On March 27, 1968, Yuri Gagarin, the first human in space, died during a routine MiG-15 UTI training flight. He and instructor Vladimir Seryogin launched from Chekhovsky for a brief weather avoidance drill. Controllers lost contact within minutes, and search parties fanned through birch forests near Novoselayovo. Wreckage scattered across a narrow impact zone hinted at an abrupt evasive maneuver or shockwave disruption. A sealed investigation cited outdated weather updates and nearby test flights among contributing factors. Mourners filed past his portrait in Moscow, honoring the cosmonaut who opened the door to space. His loss spurred safety overhauls and renewed urgency for the Soyuz program training pipeline. On March 27, 1977, two Boeing 747s collided on the fog-bound runway at Tenerife's Los Rodeos Airport, killing 583 people. A bombing diversion in Gran Canaria had rerouted traffic to the small field, jamming taxiways with jumbo jets. Fog reduced visibility to a few hundred feet as the KLM captain began takeoff, while Pan Am still taxied ahead. Radio crosstalk and similar call signs garbled clearances, masking the controller's warning. Pan Am pilots tried to escape via a hurried turn, but the KLM jet, already airborne, struck them at high speed. Investigators mandated standardized phraseology, cockpit resource management, and ground radar upgrades to prevent recurrence. History's ledger for March 27th spans first sightings, forged fleets, public health reckonings, and lessons carved into seismic scars and runways. Carrying those insights forward honors everyone within these stories. Until tomorrow, this was This Day in History.